Hi, hey, hello, how's it going? It is the middle of August, and I have yet to start vlogging for the month of August. We were up in Cape Cod with Matt's family. I have an old family place, that's where his dad grew up. So I have an old family place up there, and he likes to hang out there in the summers just to escape the heat, and, we were up there just hanging out for a couple of weeks. And the first week, Matt was actually teleworking the first week. So the first week was really just teleworking. I was applying for jobs while he was teleworking. And then we would work on dinner. We would hang out and have dinner, clean up, get ready for bed. Literally, that was the routine for the first week while we were there. We walked around a little bit downtown Chatham, and then also had a little bit of time at the beach, which was really nice. There's a beach down the road. And so we did get in a little bit of beach time, which was lovely. But there wasn't much to film in the first week. But I did bring my camera with the intention of at least keeping up with what I was reading. Did not happen. The second week, we had a quick side trip to Provincetown. I didn't get any clips of that, but we did also take a side trip for a few days to Boston, which I did get clips on my phone of our trip to Boston. So we'll get to that in a minute, but we have a lot to catch up on. So I did wrap up what I was able to read in June. We left in late June. So I talked about the last couple of things I was able to read, but I didn't talk about what we read in the car on the way up there. So I'll do that now. We were reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, and the audiobook is definitely the way to go. For this one, the audiobook is incredible. The narrator did a fantastic job. The audio production is top tier. It is a great audiobook and just a ton of fun. So we figured, since we had heard the audiobook was the way to go for this one, we figured this would be a great car trip audiobook, and we were correct. And so we read this on the way up and absolutely loved it. And in this one, we're following Carl, who, through circumstances, he finds out his girlfriend is cheating, and later that night, the cat has kind of escaped out of the window. He goes out of his apartment building to try to get the cat, Princess Donut, who's a delight. I love Princess Donut. And so he's trying to get the cat when basically aliens come and level everything on Earth and use the materials to build a dungeon. And this is something that just they go around the galaxy doing, I guess. I don't know. And so they build the dungeon for the purposes of having this be an intergalactic, or filmed and brought to audiences around the universe. It's kind of a game show that is broadcast widely, and basically they level everything that's on the surface, use those materials to build a dungeon, and then anyone who's left over or has survived this initial incident, this initial contact, are invited to go into the dungeons. And if they survive all 18 levels of the dungeon, then they're able to kind of claim ownership of Earth again, but otherwise the aliens will basically take over Earth. And you don't have to go in the dungeon, but if you choose not to go into the dungeons, then you're basically just left to fend for yourself on the surface of Earth, which again now has nothing on it. And so you basically have to go into these dungeons if you have any chance of surviving. And so he goes into this dungeon with Princess Donut the cat, his girlfriend's cat. And it's basically the story of them figuring out what the heck this dungeon is, how to navigate it, and it's a lit RPG, so it's basically, they're in this dungeon, leveling up, gaining abilities. They have a guide that they're talking to. Mordecai is kind of their guide throughout the initial part of this process, and Mordecai's a great character. I really enjoy Mordecai. And so they kind of have a guide, and they basically need to level up, gain different skills, get through this dungeon, get down to the next level in time, etc. And so really it's just a story of them learning different skills, going through different battles, opening these different boxes, rewards that they win for winning battles and stuff like that, gaining new achievements, and it's just so much fun. And due to circumstances, the cat ends up being able to talk and is kind of a full-on character throughout the story that he's going through this dungeon with, which is why I say, you get to know Princess Donut as a character, and she's hilarious. I love Princess Donut. And so it's their adventures, and it's just so much fun. So much fun. So I had a grand time with that one. And I'll talk about the next book we read in the car, actually, in just a minute, because I'll talk about that in the context of our side trip to Boston. But after the books I mentioned in my previous vlog that I finished towards the end of July, the first thing I picked up in August was Dare to Au Pair by Maya Corral. And this one was fun. This is set in the French Riviera. There's someone who, our main character, is wanting to take a position or basically work abroad so that she can build her resume, and she wants to be accepted into this program, and basically for a travel company, and be accepted into this program to kind of go through different departments at this travel company, be a travel writer is kind of an ultimate goal here. And so she's in the French Riviera. She takes an au pair position because there's not really, she hasn't really been able to find anything else to do working abroad. And her sister uses this au pair service, and so, or at least knows of it. And so she's like, hey, you can at least maybe try this service, be an au pair for some kids in another place, and that at least will help build your experience internationally. And so she's an au pair for this rich family in the French Riviera. The setting was top tier. I wanted to go to the French Riviera. I still want to. It's not a past tense thing, but this made me really want to go to the French Riviera and make a separate trip out of going to the French Riviera. Just the setting, the food, everything was just so visceral in my mind, and super close to Monaco, so it'd be easy to go check out Monaco, which she does in this story as well. And so it's her learning to be an au pair, gaining the trust of these kids who are a little bit skeptical. So it's gaining their trust. She is integrating herself into this community. She does end up kind of being a travel writer in a sense while she's there. There's someone who's trying to start a local paper or a local publication about the area as a kind of guide for tourists. And so she's writing for that, and the one rule is that she can't fall in love with the oldest son of this family. So of course she does. And, he is expected to take over the family business, but he doesn't really want to. And so he's working through some things. She's working through some things. Anyway, it was fun. I had a grand time. Again, the setting, top tier. And it was just fun to see her going through these different just realizations and just learning things about what she wants out of life. Super fun. I then picked up What Happens in Amsterdam by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This was also a delight and made me want to go to Amsterdam really badly. Again, the setting here, absolute perfection. And our main character is basically just needing a change. And so she accepts a position in Amsterdam and moves there. The company quickly goes under, and so she's left without a job, and she has only a certain amount of time to find another one before, based on her visa, she would need to leave, unless she marries a Dutch citizen. And so that's what she does. The male main character is someone that she actually knew as a teenager. He was an exchange student who was staying with her family. And so they have a history there, and things didn't end well. And she comes across him, literally stumbles across him while she's on her bike. And he, for reasons, would also find it helpful to have a wife. And so for, anyway, so for reasons they both need to marry or want to marry, and figure, hey, we should just marry and then see, you know, whatever, get what we need out of this, and then we can always divorce. So basically just to get what they need out of this exchange. And of course they re-fall in love. So it's second chance, which doesn't always work for me, but it worked here. So second chance, fake marriage. It was so much fun. And I don't know, I really enjoyed these characters. I enjoyed what the shenanigans that went on and what they were going through. And again, her learning some things about what she wants, and just them re-falling in love. They're so cute, and I really just love their dynamic a lot. So would highly recommend. I then picked up, in anticipation of our trip to Boston, Battle of the Bookstores by Ellie Brady. I absolutely love this one. So this is set in Boston, which is why I wanted to read it specifically around then, and follows a couple of bookstore owners. And the woman owns a literary bookstore. The male main character owns a romance bookstore that's a couple of doors down, separated by a coffee shop. And the same person owns both of the bookstores and the coffee shop, and they find out that his ultimate intention is to combine the spaces and make it one larger bookstore that has a cafe, coffee area in it. And so he basically sets them a challenge, because he's like, I only need one manager for this new bookstore. So whoever makes the most profit in the next 3 months gets to be the manager of this new store. So now not only are they already rivals, but they're competing to keep their jobs. And so they're coming up with different ideas to bring people into their store and sell books. And so they definitely have different strengths as bookshop owners. So she's extremely organized and basically takes everything extremely seriously because she has to. And so again, incredibly organized, has everything organized by, or alphabetized by author. Anyway, just organizes things very differently. He is really good at, maybe things are less organized, maybe the books are a little bit less organized, but he is able to create a space that feels very welcoming to people. And so the way he works with customers and his employees really helps build community. And so they have different strengths. And so it's about them competing for their jobs. They also are talking online in this forum for booksellers, and have been talking online for a long time but don't realize that it's each other. So in person they have this rivalry. Online they're friends. It's fun. I don't know. I had so much fun with this one, and it definitely was great Boston vibes too. In fact, they went to some places that we went to when we were in Boston, so it was really fun to read this. And I kind of started this before we left, ended it when we had come back, so because I didn't ultimately read much or as much while I was there. But it was fun to kind of come back, read this while we were there, a little bit before and while we were there, and then also finish it coming back and then go to some places that we actually ended up going in Boston. So it was pretty fun. And I don't know, their dynamic was just so cute. And them learning to kind of, they're both working through some things, of course. And so, they need to learn how to communicate with each other, and he's kind of breaking down her walls a bit, and vice versa. And anyway, it was just a lot of fun. I don't know, I had a grand time with this one. And so while we were in the car on the way to and from Boston, I wanted to read The Woman in the Library, because this also takes place in Boston. The characters frequently go to the reading room in the Boston Public Library, which is a place we went to. You'll see that in the clips. It was really cool. And so it was super fun to read a story set there and then actually be able to go into the reading room and check it out. I was warned before reading this, and I feel like it was a good warning to have, that this is not a closed room mystery. So they hear a woman scream in the library. And then, later, like, they're all able to leave. Later, they hear that someone has actually died in the library and was murdered in the library. And so our main character is a writer and happens to come, as she's sitting down and they all hear this scream, she starts talking to the people, the people right around her, and they're like, what's going on? And so she actually strikes up a friendship with the people that she was sitting with. And so it's her experience, and she actually is using these people as inspiration for characters in her own story. But they kind of get, they all become friends. And so it's about their friendship, and it's about this kind of group dynamic developing. But they're also trying to figure out what happened to this woman. And then weird things start happening that they feel like could be related to what happened. And so they all kind of get caught up in this mystery of what happened to this woman in the library. So it's not a closed room mystery where someone dies and then no one is able to leave until the murderer is found kind of situation. It's not like that. Like, they are able to leave. They're living their life in Boston. Again, caught up in this mystery of what happened and some other things that are starting to happen and whether or not they're related. And so if you're expecting this to be a closed room mystery, which I kind of was from the way it is described in the blurb, I was kind of expecting that and would have been disappointed, I think, if I had realized that that's not what it was as I was reading it, rather than knowing going in that it was not a locked room mystery. Anyway, so just wanted to mention that. But we both had a lot of fun with this one. It's pretty short, but we both had a lot of fun just getting caught up in the mystery of what was going on and kind of the messy dynamics of these characters' lives. And I don't know, it was just an interesting one, and I had a really great time with it. So after our Boston adventure, this was the next one I finished after we came back. This is Temple of Swoon, and I have read the other one by Joe Segura. Raiders of the Lost Heart is the other one, which I really, really enjoyed. And in this one, you're following the main character from Raiders of the Lost Heart. You're following her mentee, and Miri, and she's trying to make a name for herself in archaeology. They want to find the Lost City of the Moon. And so they're trying to find the Lost City of the Moon. They're in the Amazon. They're using what information they have to try to find this place. It's not going well. The people who were in the first book were actually supposed to lead this expedition, but one of them has an injury. They're not able to do it, and so they put her and someone else in charge of this expedition, even though she doesn't have much experience. And so she's trying to prove herself in the eyes of her colleagues. Things are not going well, and they find another group who is trying to find this lost city of the moon, but probably not to protect and preserve it and tell the story of the people who live there. Like, they just want the riches from the things that are there. Like, they want to loot it, basically. And so there's another group, and so they're trying to find it before this other group does. This other group is pretty dangerous, so they've had some dangerous interactions with this group. And our male main character is the photographer that's documenting this expedition. But he is also part of this group that's trying to protect the city, the lost city of the moon, and doesn't want anyone to find it, even a good intentioned archaeological trip to try to find it, to preserve it. Like, they just want it to remain a mystery, to truly protect the people who, or the people who live there and the things that are there. And so he's kind of working, or the intention is to kind of actually work against this expedition as he's documenting it. And of course they start falling for each other. And I love this. I love both of these books so much. They're just so much fun. I really love the dynamic between our characters. It was fun to go to the Amazon and be in this archaeological expedition, and just the things that they get up to, the things that happen. It was just a lot of fun. So I would recommend both of these books if you're just looking for something different. Like, I don't come across too many romance stories that center archaeology. And so if you're looking for something different, after we got back, I picked up Malibu Rising and just finished this yesterday. I absolutely adored this one. This is a Taylor Jenkins Reid one that I had not read. I read Daisy Jones and the Six and the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, so I needed to read this one. I still need to read Carrie Soto. I now have Atmosphere, and so I'm going to be picking up Atmosphere soon. So I still need to go back and read Carrie Soto, but otherwise I'll be caught up with her kind of recent set of books. But this one is following the four Riva siblings, and they throw this is set in the 80s, and they throw a summer party in August, which is kind of why I wanted to read it in August, just because it's set in August, like towards the end of the summer break. And they throw a party at their place every August. And so really it's just the story of these four siblings. You also go back in time, sprinkled throughout the story, to learn about the story of their parents and how their parents met, to get the story of these siblings and their dynamic and the things that each of these individual siblings are going through, and why things are kind of culminating or end up culminating at this party at the end of the summer. And anyway, she does character dynamics so well. All of these people feel like such real characters, and I think that is a strength of every book of hers that I've read. Like, the characters just feel so real and raw and messy, and the histories, the history of these characters and kind of the interactions between other people are just always so interesting. And so I had a lot of fun with this one. Definitely looking forward to reading Atmosphere and probably crying my eyes out, apparently, because everyone is losing their mind and crying while reading Atmosphere. Anyway, looking forward to that experience. The one I'm currently reading, and then we will officially be caught up in terms of my reading, is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. And I'm more than a third, approaching the halfway mark before too long in this one. And so this one's been a lot of fun. And this one we're following Scarlett and Lucas. And Scarlett is a diver. She had an injury. They're both in college at Stanford. She had an injury last season and she's physically mostly, like, she had a lot of physical therapy, mostly physically healed, but she's also been working with a therapist because there's kind of a mental block to her doing the type of dive. So she can do other types of dives and has been able to kind of get back to the point where she can do other types of dive, but the type of dive that she was doing when she got injured, there's still a mental block to her being able to do that type of dive. And Lucas is a swimmer and is very successful as a swimmer. And towards the beginning, our main character finds out so Lucas's girlfriend at the beginning, they end up breaking up towards the beginning of the story. They have a lot of love and respect for each other, but like, he's into a lot of kinky stuff that she was not into, and so ultimately that just kind of wasn't working out, and they knew it. And again, still a lot of positive feelings there, but they ended their relationship, and when she realizes that Scarlett is into some of the same things that Lucas is, she's like, hey, y'all should get together. And anyway, and so they're going through the school year, you know, going through classes, training, and ultimately decide that that would be a good idea. And go through the process of starting to talk through what they want, what they like, whether or not they would be compatible to trying that. Anyway, so this is definitely very different vibes from most of Ali Hazelwood's books. Like, most of her books are pretty spicy. There are multiple, you know, open door sex scenes, but most of them are not quite like this. But I'm still really enjoying this. I am enjoying our characters. I'm enjoying their dynamic. And I know this is going to be, you know, they're definitely, nothing is going to happen non-consensually. Like, they are talking through everything and making sure that, you know, everything feels safe and comfortable for them. So definitely loving that. But I'm just having a good time with this one. Like, it's just been a lot of fun. So I'm going to keep reading this one. I have an eye procedure today that I'm really nervous about, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to get much done today. I'm probably just going to be panicking about that until it's over. So I'm going to go do that, just panic until this eye procedure is over. So that's catching up on the reading. Let's chat very quickly about the side trip to Boston, because I was able to get some clips. I'll roll the clips in just a moment, but just kind of want to give some brief context for what we did. So we got there, we left in the morning, we're there around lunchtime on a Tuesday. We checked out the USS Constitution, which is really cool. A ship that actually has been there for several hundred years. There was a museum there to talk about its history, and you could also just walk around the ship, which was really cool. And we got some lunch. Went around to a couple of bookstores, which was a lot of fun. We were at Brattle Books, as well as another one. Walked around, grabbed a drink. We actually ended up in the Italian section, Italian area of Boston, which was really cool, and had some yummy food. Went to another bookstore, I Am Books, and just had a really good time. The next day, on the Wednesday, we went to Beacon Hill Books and Cafe. We took the train in and walked around the park, and then went up to the Beacon Hill area. And Beacon Hill Books is probably the cutest bookstore I've ever been into in my entire life. If you're in the Boston area, please go in. It was incredible. We then went to an art museum, which was really cool. It's someone who, basically her house has kind of been, she collected a lot of art, and basically her house has kind of been turned into an art museum, and it was really cool. So we went around there. We, went to the Paul Revere house as well, which was really interesting. We got some cannolis from Mike's Pastries, which was really delicious, and then ate the cannolis next to the statue of Paul Revere. And then, let's see, trying to go back over, make sure I don't miss anything. Let's see, I think we went to another bookstore in the area. Trying to remember if we went to another bookstore. Anyway, we also went to the Illusion Museum. I didn't actually get any clips in there, but that was pretty fun as well. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that was Wednesday. We also got drinks at a place where you can kind of have a really cool, it's by the water, not super high up, but you have a really great view of the water and of Boston. And so we had drinks there as it was getting dark, which was really cool. So the final morning was Thursday morning. The Cassian Young is another ship that's next to the USS Constitution. That one was actually closed on Tuesday. Not quite sure why, but it was closed on Tuesdays when we went. And so we wanted to make sure we went back there. We actually first went to the MIT area and checked out the MIT Museum, which was really interesting, and then the MIT Press bookstore, and then took the ferry over back to the harbor and went to see the Cassian Young. And we actually were there at a really good time because we got to go. Normally you can just walk around the main deck of the ship, but you can also take tours that they do periodically. I don't know how often they do them, but if you can take a tour, do it, because it was really cool. You actually got to go up and then go back down into parts of the ship that you can't see otherwise. They just don't want large volumes of people in those areas, but they can take smaller groups, which is why they can take these tour groups down. So we were lucky enough to be there at the right time to take a tour of the full ship, which is really, really cool. And then headed back from there. So anyway, had a grand time. It was super interesting. There's definitely a lot more that we would love to do. So I definitely would love to go back another time when we're up in the Cape Cod area and do some of the things that we weren't able to fit in this time. But we just wanted it to kind of be a quick side trip. So anyway, so I will roll the clips now of our trip to Boston, but just wanted to give a little context for the things that we were doing and what I got clips of. So here to check in. It has been a little bit more time than I intended between check-ins, but I have finished Deep End by Ellie Hazelwood. I love this one. I don't know, I had so much fun with this one. So I gave the overall premise of this one. So I'll tell you the things that I really, really liked. I loved their dynamic. I loved their communication. I really loved that I was feeling her stress and anxiety as she was going through school and having some struggles there. Diving was having some struggles. She was having some struggles there as well, trying to figure out her relationship and set the boundaries there and figure out how to best communicate. And I appreciated that I could feel those struggles with her, but they weren't just immediately and quickly, easily resolved. Like, she was going through therapy. She was having a tutor for some of the academic stuff that she was struggling with the most. Like, she was putting in the work to try to help progressively make things better. And you could see things get progressively better after kind of going down some spirals of things just getting out of control a little bit for her. And, Lucas being there to help her through these different struggles. And I don't know. And I also appreciated that they very much each had their own lives and what they were going through, but still were working out what it meant to be together and what they wanted out of that relationship. I don't know. I just appreciated everything about this one. I thought it was so much fun. Ellie Hazelwood just hits. I don't know. And I then started Shield of Sparrows. I don't think I've mention anything about this one so far. I am in the ballpark of halfway through, and I have paused and since picked up and gotten halfway through this one as well. I'll just briefly mention this because this is going to be quicker. I didn't want to get too far into Shield of Sparrows before being able to check in, and I knew today was probably going to be the best day to be able to check in, and so I started this one because I knew it would be fast and fun. I knew I would be able to just dive right into it. I read the third book. This is the fourth book in the American Royal series. So I say this will be quick because I can't really say much. I read the third one recently, and so I knew I would be able to just jump right into this one, get right back into it. And again, we're far enough into the series that I can't really say much. This is following the present day, but following the American royal family, if America had a royal family, and just the drama, the tea, the twists, the turns. I mean, I just have loved everything about this series, and so I wanted to dive back into the fourth one to finish this one. I think there is a novella, a prequel novella that I'll need to check out, but otherwise, I'll be done with that series, but I'm loving it. So I just wanted to go ahead and read that one so that I wouldn't get too far into this one before being able to check in. Anyway, so this one has been so much fun, though. I've really been enjoying this one. So we're following our main character, who is the princess of a kingdom here. And there are 5 kingdoms that are pretty close together, some of them separated by water. And her older sister is the one who is supposed to enter into this political marriage. So there's a treaty that is bound by magic that means that in these 5 kingdoms, depending on how, birth order and heirs and what's going on politically, like basically they've devised a system to make sure that, each generation, essentially, the heirs are marrying someone from another kingdom, and just kind of exactly what happens just depends. But they want to make sure that they are staying politically tied together. They want to make sure that trade is strong between these kingdoms. And they want to do that because they all have a common enemy that is these monsters that basically wreak havoc every now and then. And so they want to basically save all of their energy, all of their resources into defending against this attack. And so they don't want to be worrying about battling each other while also worried about this monster attack that happens periodically. And so there's this treaty, and someone has come from another kingdom, and the intention is for our main character's older sister to marry this prince, and she'll marry him in a handful of months, a little bit later in the year. But he has come just to kind of meet, the idea is for him to kind of meet the princess that he's supposed to marry, start things off well, etc. There are also some creatures in the water that is around some of these kingdoms that are affecting trade, and so they want to help control these sea creatures attacking and kill some of these sea creatures as well. So on the way over, this party that includes the prince from this other kingdom have killed 7 of these creatures that are in the sea wreaking havoc. And there's another treaty that says that if they kill a certain number of them, that they get to kind of demand another reward. And what the king demands, what the prince wants to fulfill both of these treaties is he actually wants to marry our main character as opposed to her older sister. So he says, no, I want her. And in order to not flout these treaties, basically they need to kind of comply with this. And so our main character is thrust into the situation where she's very quickly married off and is signing her name on these magical treaties and kind of binding herself to their magic and then going off with him to his kingdom. And so she's bringing her a couple of her ladies in waiting to help her along the way. And anyway, so she basically, the first half of the story is her going over, and part of what her father wants her to do is kind of act as a spy. That's part of why her sister has been trained for many years to fulfill this political marriage, is she's also been trained to kind of seek out specific information. And so he, before she leaves, kind of tells our main character's father basically tells her about what he wants, the information that he needs, and the ultimate goal is to be able to stop these attacks from those monsters that attack periodically. The ultimate goal is to be able to stop those, is kind of what he says his ultimate goal is in finding out this certain information. But the kingdom that she's marrying into has kind of been a bit secretive, a bit more private than some of the other ones. And so he wants information on their capital city, and he wants some other information and kind of ways to move about in that kingdom, and ways to get certain information and get certain things. And so the first half is her getting married off, going to this other kingdom, trying to get her bearings and find out as much as she can. She's really not getting very far. And so she's trying to figure out what she can do to kind of move along in her project to get this information for her dad and then be able to send this information back to him. And so it's been fun. I've been having a good time. The prince that she's marrying doesn't really speak very much, so she's having a hard time getting to know him or getting comfortable around him. She has had some interesting and charged interactions with the guardian that kind of protects the prince that she's marrying, and so those have been fun. I don't know, the dynamic has been really entertaining. And I don't know, I've just been having a really good time with this one and looking forward to continuing on and seeing, it's nice to see her take a bit more agency now that she's there and kind of has her bearings, but it's good to see her take a bit more agency and not let things happen to her, but start to be a little bit more proactive in trying to accomplish what she wants to accomplish. So hopefully that'll continue. Again, having a grand time. It's just been very entertaining. So looking forward to reading more of that one and looking forward to finishing this one as well, because oh my gosh, things are happening. Every character is just going through it in this one, and it's just so much fun. So anyway, that is the update for now. I have video work to do, so hopefully I'll still be able to get some good reading in today. We'll see, but I'm trying to get caught up with video work, because especially after, coming back from our trip to Cape Cod, it's just been, it always just takes a bit to kind of get reoriented after coming back from a longer trip especially. So I'm going to try to get caught up with some video work, try to get a few things done around the house, but I don't know how much time I'll have to get some of those things done. But anyway, I'm going to go do some of those things and continue reading A Shield of Sparrows. And yeah, again, just not an enjoyable world in terms of I want to be there, but fun to read about. And I just really enjoyed our female main character's journey and her learning to come into her own, stand up for herself, or figure things out for herself, and kind of take control over things, figure out who maybe is manipulating her, figure out what's going on and where she needs to fit in to this larger political set of things happening. Just a ton of fun. I really liked her relationship with our male main character. Again, just a fun dynamic. And yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to read the next one for sure. I also did finish the fourth book in the American Royals series, which is the final one. So I've now, I say concluded that series. But I think I don't know if I mentioned this one earlier, but I think there might be a prequel novella that I'll have to check out at some point. But as far as the main series, I'm now done with the main series, which is very exciting. And again, another very enjoyable series. The tea is scalding. The characters go through so much shenanigans, but just, again, their growth as well is just a lot of fun to read about, and what they get up to and what they learn about themselves throughout these shenanigans happening is just so much fun. It's so much fun. I don't know, would recommend if you just want a thought experiment fleshed out of what would happen if America had royals. Give it a go, it's fun. So I'm gonna call it here and start another vlog for some more reads throughout the rest of August, and just kind of cut it off here because I think this one's probably gonna be pretty long, especially with the trip to Boston. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed those clips of Boston and had fun with me talking about some books that I enjoyed. Let me know if you've read any of these, and subscribe for more bookish content. And I'll also link my Instagram down below, as well as more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.